I recently gained interest in Beth Allison Barr's somewhat new release, The Making of Biblical Womanhood, How the Subjugation of Women Became Gospel Truth. And knowing the feminist bent behind it, I decided to take a read of it and see what arguments she forwards against biblical patriarchy. Apart from her unique arguments from medieval history and the stronger than usual emphasis on alleged abuse that comes from complementarianism, her arguments are stock standard in the egalitarian toolbox. The Bible empowers women, whatever the heck that's supposed to mean. There's an egalitarian trajectory in Paul's letters, even despite the problem passages, and so on. But I recently found one very small paragraph that is nonetheless quite important in a section of her argument, and one which is so horribly reasoned and so greatly abuses the source material that I think it makes a quick and effective case study in bad history, especially from a credentialed historian. So, let's take a look. The section is quite brief, so I will read it out in full. In chapter 2, under the subheading, Because Paul's Purpose Wasn't the Roman Gender Hierarchy, Barr writes the following. One more piece of evidence that convinces me that the household code should be read as resistance narratives to Roman patriarchy is how early Christians were perceived by the Roman world, as gender deviants. Ossiek and MacDonald remind us that Pliny the Younger, after discussing the torture of two Christian women, whom he called deacons, described Christianity as a depraved and excessive superstition. As they write, in drawing attention to some kind of female leadership in the group to the exclusion of references to male leaders, Pliny was implying that the ideals of masculinity were being compromised. Women were in control. And this, in Roman terms, was shameful. Not only did early Christians place women in leadership roles, they met together on equal footing, men, women, children, and slaves, in the privacy of the home, a traditionally female space. Christianity was deviant and immoral because it was perceived as undermining ideals of Roman masculinity. Christianity was repugnant to Pliny because it didn't follow the Roman household codes, not because it followed them. The section continues on from here, and she's building on an earlier argument contrasting her conception of Roman patriarchy, again whatever the heck that means, with Paul's writings. But this is her whole treatment of Pliny the Younger. Some brief context as well. Pliny the Younger worked in various roles of the Roman government throughout the late 1st and early 2nd centuries, and personally knew the historians Tacitus and Suetonius, among other major figures. Pliny's descriptions of Christian practice are thus extremely valuable historically. Now, I decided to look at the relevant letter of Pliny that Barr and her selected scholars appeal to, and it is letter 96 to Emperor Trajan. In it, he reports on his attempts to interrogate and punish professing Christians, and how he'd give them an out by making a sacrifice to their deities with verbal cursings of Christ. He describes one time when he attempted to extract information from two Christian women. As he says, I thought it the more necessary, therefore, to find out what truth there was in these statements by submitting two women, who were called deaconesses, to the torture, but I found nothing but a debased superstition carried to great lengths. This is the full section appealed to by Barr and her chosen scholars, and a couple of notes must be made of the Latin text. First, Pliny's hatred of Christianity is summarized in the use of the word superstition, which from the Latin text is superstitionem, the accusative form of superstitio, and this directly pertains to religious beliefs and practices which the Romans considered irrational, particularly with respect to an excessive fear of divine wrath. It does not, as far as I have searched, refer to aberrant social structures and flipped gender roles. Second, though the English text calls these women, well, women, the word used in the Latin text is ancilis, the optative plural of ancilla, which is a female slave or a maidservant. This is important to note given Barr's claim that these women were somehow leaders. Third, Barr dishonestly claims that Pliny refers to these women as deacons. For one, he himself doesn't call them deacons, but the above ancilis, or female slaves, after which he says that they were called deacons, presumably by other Christians. But the core reason of the dishonesty is because the Latin text refers to them as ministrae, the plural of ministra, a female servant or agent, and in Christian contexts, a deaconess. The feminine ministra is accurately rendered deaconess in the translation I used, which I read above. Barr's false rendering of the text is no small and accidental error. It could affect a layman's view on whether the scriptures permit female deacons, which is a whole other element of the wider debate. not to mention obscure the fact that deaconesses in early church history were distinct from male deacons, or just deacons, and served separate functions. Now, with this context in mind, let's compare the interpretation given by Ossique, MacDonald, and Barr side by side with the source itself. Does Pliny's statement accuse Christians of being gender deviants? Does it draw attention to female leadership? Does it imply that the ideals of masculinity were being compromised? That Christians weren't following Roman household codes? That Pliny thought women were in control? To put it in the most respectful and restrained way I can, no. Pliny does not say nor imply any of these things. Now, to put it in the most honest way I can, because I believe honesty is real Christ-likeness, this is insanity. Absolutely nothing, not one iota of what Barr and these other scholars assert is drawn from Pliny's words. There is zero rational connection between them. Zero. Pliny recounts torturing 2 Christian women for information. That's it. The debased superstition he speaks of is the faith itself, as Barr herself notes, because it totally denied the normal religious order of Rome and only worshipped one God, who additionally became a man, died, and rose again. This is what Romans like Pliny found dangerous and, well, silly. Pliny doesn't betray a hint of his views on Christian household structures. Maybe the Romans did look on in disgust at what Christians allowed their women to do. But even then, it is fallacious to assert some egalitarian trajectory based on post-Enlightenment concepts like equality. Christianity would not have posed any less of a threat to the pagan order if it weren't egalitarian, which it most certainly wasn't. Oh, my dad makes some awesome iced coffee. Scholarship is replete with fallacious reasoning and primary source abuse just like this, and many laymen unfortunately get taken up by it very easily. That is why my channel exists, to break the layman's scholar boundary and to communicate to people that scholars are not some priestly class above you, but ordinary persons who simply studied a subject for a very long time. They can still be wrong, and spectacularly so, as I just showed right here. So don't just take it if someone says, well, this scholar says X, or most scholars say Y, because for all you know, they, the scholars, could be full of crap. And in which case, take the time yourself to learn logical reasoning and argumentation, and in the case of the scriptures, how to avoid exegetical fallacies, which is the name of a book I highly recommend by D.A. Carson. Now, I can't comment on Ossique and MacDonald's motivations and methods, but it is clear to me, having read much of Barr's book, that she is not investigating history to find the truth, but to confirm a position founded on the emotional residue of bad experiences, a foundation she herself admits. I don't say this on the basis of one paragraph either. I have a fuller review coming further down the pipe on the rest of her exegesis and appeals to ancient history, which will include a discussion of pagan views on Christian social structures. You can expect that sometime within January maybe. But for now, I hope you took away something from this case study of history gone wildly wrong. Please send it to anybody and everybody you think may also benefit from it. Have a lovely day. God bless.